The text message came at 2:47 a.m., while Ethan Cole was under a rusted Chevy, oil dripping onto his safety glasses. His phone buzzed against the concrete floor of Miller's auto shop, the notification light casting eerie shadows across the garage walls. He doesn't suspect anything yet. Keep playing the devoted wife until we figure this out. Love you. The wrench slipped from Ethan's grip, clanging against metal. He slid out from under the vehicle, wiping his hands on his coveralls as he stared at his wife's phone screen. Savannah had left it charging on his workbench while she went to grab coffee from the 24-hour diner across the street. The message wasn't sent to him. Ethan's chest tightened as he read it again. Then again. The sender's name made his stomach drop. Chase Dermott, his best friend since high school, his business partner, the guy who'd been their best man 3 years ago. Footsteps echoed outside the shop, Savannah's heels clicking against wet asphalt. Ethan placed the phone exactly where she'd left it and slid back under the Chevy, his hands trembling as he gripped the wrench. "Babe, the diner's closed," Savannah called out, her voice carrying that fake sweetness she used when she wanted something. "I'm heading home. Don't stay too late, okay?" "Sure thing," Ethan managed, his voice steady despite the acid burning his throat. "Love you too." The words tasted like poison. He listened to her heels clicking away, waited for her BMW to start and pull out of the parking lot. Only then did he emerge from under the car, his legs unsteady. 28 years old, and he felt like he was drowning. Ethan stared at the empty garage around him. This place had been his sanctuary since he'd bought it with his settlement money from his last amateur MMA fight. The fight that ended his career with a torn ACL and shattered dreams. But he'd built something here. Something real, or so he'd thought. His phone buzzed. A text from Chase. "Gym's locked up. See you tomorrow for the books review. Don't let Savannah stress you out, man. You deserve better." The hypocrisy made Ethan's vision blur. Chase owned Dermott's Elite Fitness, the high-end gym where Ethan had been training before his injury. They'd partnered up 6 months ago when Chase needed someone to handle the business side while he focused on the celebrity clients. Ethan had invested his remaining settlement money, thinking he was building a future with his best friend. Now he wondered what else Chase had been building. Ethan locked up the shop and drove home through empty streets, his mind racing. Their house sat in a quiet subdivision, a modest two-story that Savannah constantly complained about. Too small, too old, too far from downtown. Not like the penthouse Chase had bought last year. The house was dark when he pulled into the driveway. Savannah's BMW was already there, which meant she'd driven straight home after leaving the shop. No detours, no stops, no coffee run. Inside, she was already in bed, pretending to sleep. Ethan stood in the doorway watching her shoulders rise and fall, wondering how long this had been going on. How many lies he'd swallowed without question. He showered in their guest bathroom, not wanting to wake her. Not trusting himself to act normal if she started talking. The hot water couldn't wash away the image of that text message burned into his memory. He doesn't suspect anything yet. Sleep didn't come. Ethan lay on the guest bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every interaction from the past few months. Savannah's sudden interest in working out, her new clothes, the way she lit up when Chase texted, the girls' nights that seemed to happen whenever Chase mentioned business trips. How had he been so blind? At dawn, Ethan made coffee and sat at their kitchen table, watching Savannah sleep through the window reflection. She looked peaceful, innocent, the same woman who'd cried in his arms after his injury, promising they'd figure out their future together. The same woman who'd apparently been planning a different future behind his back. His phone rang. Nathan Reyes's name appeared on the screen. "You sound like hell," Nathan said without preamble. The old fighter's voice was gravelly from too many cigarettes and too many punches to the throat. "What's wrong?" Ethan had met Nathan at his first amateur fight 10 years ago. The 60-year-old trainer had taken him under his wing, taught him discipline, strategy, how to read an opponent's weaknesses. After Ethan's injury, Nathan had disappeared into retirement, running a small gym on the wrong side of town. "Nothing I can't handle," Ethan replied. "Bullcrap. I can hear it in your voice. You sound like I did when I found out my wife was screwing my manager." Nathan paused. "You want to talk about it?" Ethan closed his eyes. "Not over the phone." "Fair enough. Meet me at Mickey's bar tonight, 7 o'clock. And, Ethan? Yeah? Bring your gloves." The line went dead. Savannah emerged from the bedroom an hour later looking radiant in her yoga pants and designer tank top. She kissed Ethan's forehead, her perfume overwhelming. Morning, baby. I'm meeting Tori for lunch, then hitting the gym. Don't wait up if you're working late again. Tori, Savannah's best friend since college, a divorce attorney who'd made a career out of bleeding men dry and called it feminism. Ethan had never liked her, but Savannah worshipped her opinion. Which gym? Ethan asked casually. Savannah paused, her coffee mug halfway to her lips. The usual. That new place downtown. Not Chase's gym, then. At least not officially. Have fun, Ethan said. She kissed him again, longer this time. Guilt, maybe. Or practice for whoever she was really kissing these days. After she left, Ethan called in sick to the shop and drove across town to Chase's penthouse building. He parked across the street with a clear view of the parking garage entrance and waited. At 11:30 a.m., Savannah's BMW pulled in. She didn't come out for 3 hours. When she finally emerged, her hair was different. Messier. Her makeup fresh, like she'd reapplied it. She checked her reflection in the building's glass doors before walking to her car, a satisfied smile on her face. Ethan followed her to the restaurant where she was supposed to be meeting Tori. She went inside, hugged her friend, and they sat down for what looked like a normal lunch. Except Savannah kept checking her phone and smiling. Tori leaned across the table, whispering excitedly. They knew. Both of them knew, and they were treating it like some exciting secret. That evening, Ethan found Nathan at Mickey's bar, a dive that smelled like stale beer and broken dreams. The old trainer looked exactly the same as he had 5 years ago. Gray hair, scarred knuckles, eyes that had seen too much. So, Nathan said, sliding a beer across the table. Tell me about her. Ethan told him everything. The text message, the surveillance, the lies. Nathan listened without interruption, occasionally nodding or grunting in understanding. How long you been married? Nathan asked when Ethan finished. 3 years next month? Kids? No. Savannah wanted to wait until I was more established. Ethan made air quotes around the word. Nathan snorted. Translation, until she found someone better. She's not evil, Nathan. She's just lost. Boy, you always were too soft-hearted for your own good. Nathan leaned back in his chair. Let me tell you something about betrayal. It's not a mistake. It's not confusion. It's a choice. Every text message, every lie, every time she looked you in the eye and pretended to love you while planning your destruction, that was a choice. Ethan stared into his beer. So what do I do? That depends. You want to save your marriage or save yourself? What's the difference? Nathan smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Saving your marriage means couples therapy, forgiveness, and spending the rest of your life wondering when she'll do it again. Saving yourself means remembering who you were before she convinced you to be smaller. I'm not that person anymore. The fighter's gone. Is he? Nathan stood up. Come on, let's find out. They drove to Nathan's gym in silence. The building was a converted warehouse in the industrial district, all exposed brick and rust-stained metal. Inside, the air was thick with sweat and determination. A few late-night fighters were working the heavy bags, their strikes echoing like shots. Nathan handed Ethan a pair of gloves. Show me what you remember. Ethan wrapped his hands carefully, muscle memory taking over. He approached the heavy bag like an old friend, feeling its weight, its resistance. The first punch was tentative. The second had more force. By the 10th, he was moving like water, each strike precise and devastating. Your knee's fine, Nathan observed. Has been for 2 years. Doctor cleared me, but Savannah said fighting was too dangerous. Said I needed to focus on building a stable future, while she was tearing it down behind your back. Nathan watched Ethan work the bag. You're holding back. I don't want to hurt anyone. Boy, they're already hurting you. The question is whether you're going to lie down and take it. Ethan stopped punching. What are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm telling you that you've got 2 choices. You can confront them, cry, beg for forgiveness that you don't deserve to have to ask for, and hope they throw you a bone. Or you can remind them who they're dealing with. I'm not going to hurt my wife. There are worse things than physical pain, Nathan said quietly. Like watching everything you've built get handed to someone else while everyone pretends you deserve it. They trained for 2 hours. By the end, Ethan's shirt was soaked with sweat, but his mind was clearer than it had been in months. Nathan walked him to his car. Think about what I said, but don't think too long. The longer you wait, the more time they have to plan your funeral. Ethan drove home through empty streets, Nathan's words echoing in his head. The house was dark again. Savannah's car in the driveway, her phone charging on the nightstand, her breathing steady and peaceful. The next morning brought a text from Chase. "Can't make our meeting today. Emergency with a client. Rain check?" An hour later, Savannah announced she was spending the day with her sister in the next town over. "Linda's having problems with her husband. I might stay overnight to help her through it." Linda lived 3 states away and hadn't spoken to Savannah in 2 years. Instead of confronting the lie, Ethan kissed his wife goodbye and told her to drive safely. Then he went to work and pretended everything was normal while his world crumbled around him. That afternoon, Chase showed up at the auto shop. "Hey, brother," he said, his perfect teeth gleaming in a practiced smile. "Thought I'd stop by and see how you're doing. You seemed stressed lately." Chase Dermott looked like he'd stepped off a magazine cover. 6'2", professionally styled hair, clothes that cost more than most people's rent. He'd been popular in high school, star quarterback, prom king. The kind of guy who'd never had to work for anything because everything had always been handed to him, including, apparently, other people's wives. "I'm fine," Ethan said, not looking up from the engine he was working on. "You sure? Because Savannah mentioned you've been distant. She's worried about you." The audacity was breathtaking. Ethan's grip tightened on his wrench, but his voice remained steady. "Just work stress. You know how it is." "Actually, that's what I wanted to talk to you about." Chase leaned against the workbench with practiced casualness. "I've been thinking about our partnership." "Here it comes," Ethan thought. "The gym's doing great, but I think we could do better. I've got some investors interested in expanding, maybe opening a second location, but they want to buy out smaller partners to streamline operations." "Smaller partners." "You know what I mean. Nothing personal, just business. I could offer you, say, 60% of your initial investment back. Clean break, no hard feelings." Ethan finally looked up. Chase's expression was sympathetic, concerned, the perfect mask of a friend looking out for his buddy's best interests. But his eyes were cold, calculating. The eyes of a hunter. "Let me think about it," Ethan said. "Of course. No rush." Chase pushed off from the workbench. "Just don't think too long, okay? These opportunities don't wait forever." After Chase left, Ethan sat in his office staring at the partnership papers on his desk. Everything was in Chase's name. The gym, the equipment, even the bank accounts. Ethan's investment had been structured as a loan with equity stakes tied to performance metrics that Chase controlled. If Chase wanted him out, he could make it happen legally and leave Ethan with nothing. His phone buzzed. A text from Savannah. "Linda's worse than I thought. Definitely staying overnight. Love you." Followed immediately by another message. This one from an unknown number. "Room 247, Hampton Inn on 5th Street. If you want to see how much your wife loves you." Ethan stared at the message for a long time. Then he locked up the shop and drove to the Hampton Inn. Room 247 was on the 2nd floor, facing the parking lot. Ethan sat in his truck with a clear view of the door and waited. At 6:30 p.m., Chase's Porsche pulled into the lot. 10 minutes later, Savannah's BMW arrived. They didn't even try to hide it. Chase opened the door. Savannah practically jumped into his arms, and they disappeared into the room like teenagers sneaking around. Ethan watched the light come on behind the curtains, watched their shadows move against the fabric, watched his marriage die in real time. His phone rang, Nathan's name on the screen. "Where are you?" the old trainer asked. "Watching my life fall apart." "Good. That means you're finally seeing clearly. Now get out of there before you do something stupid." "Like what?" "Like confronting them right now while you're emotional. That's exactly what they want. Give them a reason to make you the bad guy." Ethan started his truck. "Then what do I do?" "You remember what I taught you about fighting smarter opponents. You don't meet them where they're strong. You make them come to you." "I don't understand." "You will. Meet me at the gym tomorrow night." "And Ethan?" "Don't tell anyone where you're going." The next morning, Savannah came home with a story about Linda's breakdown, her husband's drinking, and the long night of emotional support. She was animated, energetic, glowing with the satisfaction of a woman who thought she was getting away with something. "You look tired," she said, touching Ethan's face with mock concern. "Are you getting enough sleep?" "I'm fine." "Maybe you should take a vacation, get away from work for a while. I could stay with Tori while you're gone, give you some space to clear your head." "How convenient." "Maybe," Ethan said. That evening, he drove to Nathan's gym. The old trainer was waiting with a manila envelope full of photographs. "Friend of mine used to be a private investigator," Nathan explained. "Still does favors for the right price." The photos were devastating. Chase and Savannah entering and leaving the Hampton Inn, kissing in his penthouse doorway. Her car parked outside his building at various times over the past 3 months. Timestamps, locations, irrefutable evidence. "This is enough for a divorce," Ethan said, "if that's what you want." "What else would I want?" Nathan pulled out another envelope. Information. Chase's gym is leveraged to the eyeballs. He's been taking out loans using the business as collateral, but the revenue isn't supporting the payments. He's 3 months behind on rent, 2 months behind on equipment leases, and he owes money to some very unforgiving people. Ethan studied the financial documents. "How did you get these?" "Same investigator. Amazing what public records and a little social engineering can accomplish." Nathan leaned forward. "Your boy Chase is drowning, Ethan. The only thing keeping him afloat is the money he's been skimming from your partnership. That's why he wants to buy me out." "Exactly. Except he doesn't have the money to buy you out. He's planning to default on your loan and keep the gym. Your wife's probably helping him plan it." Ethan felt something cold settle in his chest. "They're stealing from me. Now you're getting it. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" Nathan pulled out a third envelope. "Or you could do nothing. Divorce Savannah? Write off your investment as a loss and start over somewhere else. Plenty of men have done exactly that." "What's in the envelope?" Nathan smiled. "Insurance." The envelope contained copies of text messages between Chase and several women, including Savannah, but also including 2 other married women, one of whom was the wife of Chase's biggest investor. The messages were explicit, manipulative, and damning. "Chase isn't just a cheater," Nathan explained. "He's a hunter. He targets married women with money or connections, seduces them, then uses them to get what he wants. Your wife isn't special, Ethan. She's just another mark." Ethan stared at the messages, recognizing Savannah's number among the contacts. The things she'd written to Chase made his stomach turn, not just because of the betrayal, but because of how calculated it all seemed. How cold. "What do you want me to do with this?" "I want you to remember who you are," Nathan said. "You're not some soft civilian who rolls over when someone tries to destroy him. You're a fighter. Maybe it's time to start fighting back." That night, Ethan lay in bed next to his sleeping wife and made his decision. The next morning, he called in sick to work and drove to a storage unit facility across town. He rented a small unit under a false name and began moving his important possessions there. Tools, documents, personal items that couldn't be replaced. If Savannah and Chase were planning to destroy his life, he wasn't going to make it easy for them. Then he drove to Nathan's gym and began training like his life depended on it. For the next 2 weeks, Ethan maintained his normal routine while secretly preparing for war. He documented every suspicious text message, every lie, every time Savannah claimed to be somewhere she wasn't. He researched Chase's business dealings, his debts, his weaknesses, and he got in the best shape of his life. Nathan pushed him harder than he'd ever been pushed, rebuilding not just his body, but his confidence. The tentative man who'd been afraid to confront his cheating wife was replaced by someone harder, colder, more focused. "You're ready," Nathan said after a particularly brutal training session. "The question is, are you sure you want to do this?" "They made their choice," Ethan replied. "Now I'm making mine." The trap was simple and elegant. Ethan sent Chase a text from a burner phone, pretending to be a potential investor who'd heard about the gym through mutual connections. The investor wanted to meet that evening to discuss a major investment, but only if Chase could guarantee complete discretion. Chase took the bait immediately. The meeting was set for 8 p.m. at the old MMA arena, where Ethan had fought his last professional bout. The building had been abandoned for 2 years, but Ethan still had a key from his training days. At 7:45 p.m., Ethan was waiting in the center of the octagon when Chase arrived. "Ethan?" Chase called out, his voice echoing in the empty arena. "What are you doing here?" "Waiting for you." Chase approached cautiously, his expensive shoes clicking on the concrete floor. "I don't understand. I'm supposed to meet an investor." "You are meeting an investor? Someone who invested his trust, his money, and his wife in the wrong person?" Understanding dawned on Chase's face. His confident smile faded, replaced by something uglier. "Look, man, I don't know what you think you know. I know about the Hampton Inn. I know about the other women. I know about the money you've been stealing from our partnership. Ethan pulled out his phone and played a recording of Chase's conversation with one of his creditors, threatening legal action if payments weren't made immediately. Chase's face went pale. You're recording me? I've been recording everything. Every lie, every betrayal, every crime. Ethan stepped forward. Did you really think I was stupid enough not to notice? Ethan, listen, we can work this out. Savannah doesn't mean anything to me. She's just... The punch came from nowhere. A perfect right cross that sent Chase stumbling backward. He hit the octagon fence and slid to the ground, blood streaming from his nose. She's just what? Ethan asked conversationally. Chase scrambled to his feet, pulling out his phone. I'm calling the police. Go ahead. I'd love to explain to them how you've been embezzling money from our partnership while sleeping with my wife. Chase hesitated, his thumb hovering over the screen. Put the phone down, Chase. You're insane. I'm motivated. There's a difference. Ethan circled him like a hunter. See, you made a mistake. You thought I was soft, weak, the kind of man who'd just roll over and let you destroy his life. You are weak. That's why Savannah came to me. The second punch was harder than the first, catching Chase in the ribs and dropping him to his knees. Ethan grabbed a handful of his perfectly styled hair and forced him to look up. Let me explain how this is going to work, Ethan said quietly. You're going to transfer your shares in the gym to me. You're going to pay back every penny you've stolen. And you're going to disappear from my wife's life. Or what? Ethan pulled out his phone and showed Chase a video of him entering the Hampton Inn with a married woman. Not Savannah, but the wife of his biggest investor. Or, I send this to her husband, along with all the text messages you've been sending her. I wonder how he'll react when he finds out his business partner has been screwing his wife while spending his money. Chase's face went from pale to gray. You wouldn't. Try me. For 20 minutes, Ethan systematically destroyed Chase's world. Every dirty secret, every hidden debt, every compromising photo was laid out like evidence in a courtroom. By the end, Chase was crying. Please, he begged. I'll do whatever you want. Just don't ruin me. You ruined yourself, Ethan replied. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. Chase signed the paperwork transferring his gym shares with shaking hands. He agreed to every demand, promised to stay away from Savannah, begged for mercy that Ethan had no intention of giving. One more thing, Ethan said as Chase prepared to leave. If you ever contact my wife again, if you even look at her, I'll finish what we started here. And next time, there won't be any paperwork to sign. Chase stumbled out of the arena, a broken man. Ethan stood alone in the octagon, breathing heavily, feeling something he hadn't felt in years, power. The next phase began immediately. Ethan hired a lawyer and filed for divorce, citing infidelity and providing overwhelming evidence. He also filed a criminal complaint for embezzlement, turning over all the financial records Nathan's investigator had uncovered. Savannah's reaction was explosive. You fool! She screamed when the process server handed her the papers. You think you can destroy my life just because you're jealous? I'm not destroying anything, Ethan replied calmly. I'm just stopping you from destroying mine. I loved you. I was trying to save our marriage. By sleeping with my business partner and helping him steal my money? Savannah's mask slipped completely, revealing the cold, calculating woman underneath. You were never going anywhere, Ethan. You're a loser who peaked in high school and never got over it. Chase offered me a real future. How's that working out for you? She slapped him, hard. Ethan didn't even flinch. I'll take you for everything you have, she snarled. With what? The same lawyer who's been helping you plan this betrayal? Good luck affording her fees now that Chase is broke. That's when Savannah realized the scope of what had happened. Chase wasn't just out of her life. He was ruined. His gym was closed, his assets frozen, his reputation destroyed. The man she'd thought was her meal ticket was facing criminal charges and bankruptcy. The next few weeks were a masterclass in strategic revenge. Ethan released carefully chosen pieces of information at precisely the right moments to maximize damage. Chase's affairs became public knowledge when Ethan anonymously sent the evidence to the local gossip blogger who'd been trying to break into entertainment journalism. The story went viral within hours. Savannah's social media accounts were flooded with screenshots of her text messages, her friends abandoning her one by one as the scandal grew. Her job at the marketing firm became untenable when clients started canceling contracts, not wanting to be associated with the drama. Tori, her enabler and confidant, tried to distance herself from the fallout, but Ethan had recordings of her encouraging Savannah's affair, even helping plan the deception. When those recordings became public, Tori's law practice suffered its own scandal. The beautiful thing was that Ethan never had to lie or fabricate anything. He simply revealed the truth that Chase and Savannah had worked so hard to hide. 3 weeks after filing for divorce, Ethan received a call from Detective Ray Slade, a weathered cop who'd been investigating Chase's business practices. "You mind coming down to the station?" Slade asked. "I've got some questions about your former partner." Ethan met Slade at the precinct, an imposing black man in his 50s who looked like he'd seen everything and been impressed by none of it. "Hell of a thing, what happened to your marriage?" Slade said without preamble. "Public betrayal like that, most men would lose their minds." "I kept mine." "Did you?" "Because looking at this case, it seems like someone orchestrated a pretty thorough destruction of Chase Dermott's life, someone who knew exactly where all the bodies were buried." Ethan met his gaze steadily. "I just provided information to the appropriate authorities." "Uh-huh. And the affair allegations? The social media campaign? The mysterious investor who set up that meeting at the old arena?" "I don't know what you're talking about." Slade studied him for a long moment. "You know what I think? I think Chase Dermott and your wife underestimated who they were dealing with. I think they saw a quiet mechanic and assumed he'd be easy to steamroll." "Is that what you think?" "I think they were wrong." Slade leaned back in his chair. "I also think you're walking a very thin line between justice and revenge. Make sure you know which side you're on." "Is there a difference?" "Sometimes, but not always." Slade stood up. "We're done here. But Ethan, be careful. Men who get a taste for this kind of power sometimes can't stop themselves from wanting more." That night, Ethan went home to his empty house and sat in his kitchen, thinking about Slade's warning. The detective wasn't wrong. The methodical destruction of his enemies had been intoxicating. For the first time in years, he felt like he was in control of his own life, but it wasn't over yet. Savannah had moved in with her parents, unable to afford her own place after losing her job. Her father, a stern man who'd never liked Ethan, had initially been supportive of his daughter. That changed when Ethan sent him copies of the text messages showing how Savannah had been planning to take Ethan for everything he was worth. "She's not the woman I raised," the old man had told Ethan over the phone. "I'm ashamed of what she's become." The divorce proceedings were swift and brutal. Savannah's lawyer, overwhelmed by the evidence of infidelity and financial conspiracy, advised her to accept Ethan's settlement offer. She would get nothing from the marriage except her personal belongings and her car, which was repossessed a week later when the payments stopped. Chase fared even worse. Criminal charges for embezzlement and fraud resulted in a plea deal that sent him to minimum security prison for 18 months. His penthouse was seized to pay debts, his gym permanently closed. The man who'd had everything lost it all in a matter of weeks. But Ethan wasn't finished. On a cold Thursday evening, 2 months after filing for divorce, Ethan received an unexpected visitor. Tori stood on his doorstep looking haggard and desperate. "We need to talk," she said. Ethan let her in, curious about what Savannah's former best friend could possibly want. "This has gone far enough," Tori said without preamble. "Savannah's life is destroyed. Chase is in prison. You've won. Isn't that enough?" "Enough for what?" "Enough revenge. You've humiliated them, bankrupted them, turned everyone against them. What more do you want?" Ethan poured himself a beer and didn't offer her one. "I want them to understand consequences." "They understand. Savannah's living with her parents, working at a coffee shop, can barely afford groceries. She cries herself to sleep every night." "Good." Tori's face flushed with anger. "She loved you, you know. Maybe she made mistakes, but she genuinely loved you. She loved my money. She loved my stability. She loved having someone to fall back on while she searched for something better." "That's not true." Ethan pulled out his phone and played a recording he'd been saving for a special occasion. Savannah's voice filled the room, clear and unmistakable. "Ethan's such a loser, but he's useful. He thinks we're building a future together, but really, I'm just buying time until I find someone worth actually marrying. Chase has money, connections, ambition, everything Ethan lacks." Tori's face went white. "Where did you get that?" "Your office. You left your phone recording during one of your girls' lunches 6 months ago." Amazing what people say when they think no one's listening. You've been planning this for 6 months? I've been protecting myself for 6 months. There's a difference. Tori stood up abruptly. You're a monster. I'm a man who refused to be destroyed quietly. After she left, Ethan sat alone in his house, thinking about monsters and sufferers and the thin line between justice and revenge. His phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. You think you've won, but this isn't over. Some of us don't forget. Chase, probably reaching out from prison. Or maybe Savannah, desperate for some last word. It didn't matter. Ethan deleted the message without responding. 3 days later, he found out who'd sent it. The brick came through his front window at 2 a.m., wrapped in a note. You destroyed everything good in my life. Now, I'll destroy you. Ethan called the police, but they couldn't do much with an anonymous threat. Detective Slade came by to take a report. You have any idea who might want to hurt you? He asked with a straight face. Take your pick. This is what I was worried about, Slade said. You set a fire. Eventually someone's going to try to burn you back. Let them try. But Ethan wasn't as confident as he sounded. Over the next week, small acts of vandalism plagued his life. Sugar in his gas tank. Obscene graffiti on his shop windows. Dead flowers left on his doorstep. Someone was escalating. The answer came from an unexpected source. Nathan called him to the gym for an urgent meeting. We got a problem, the old trainer said. Chase got out of prison early. Good behavior, overcrowding, whatever. He's been out for 3 days. So he's been asking around about you. Specifically, he's been asking about your routine, where you work, when you're alone, whether you're still training. Ethan felt a familiar chill. He's planning something. That's what I'm thinking. And before you ask, yes, I've got someone watching him. Professional courtesy between old fighters. Nathan handed him a manila envelope. Inside were surveillance photos of Chase, meeting with 2 men outside a bar in the rough part of town. The men looked like exactly what they were, criminals for hire. He doesn't have money for professionals, Nathan observed, but he's got something these guys want. Information, maybe. Or promises of payment once you're out of the picture. What kind of information? The kind that gets people eliminated. That night, Ethan didn't go home. Instead, he parked outside Chase's cheap motel and waited. At 3 a.m., his patience was rewarded when Chase emerged from his room and got into a beat-up Honda Civic. Ethan followed at a distance as Chase drove to an abandoned warehouse in the industrial district, the same area where Nathan's gym was located, but several blocks away. Chase parked and walked inside, where 2 men were waiting. Ethan couldn't hear the conversation, but the body language was clear. Chase was desperate, pleading. The 2 men were unimpressed, threatening. After 20 minutes, Chase handed over something, documents, maybe photographs, and the men seemed satisfied. Whatever Chase had planned, it was happening soon. Ethan drove straight to Nathan's gym and found the old fighter waiting with coffee and a grim expression. You look like you've seen a ghost, Nathan said. Maybe I have. Ethan told him about the warehouse meeting. Nathan nodded grimly. Those men he met with, Tommy Vasquez and Danny Church. They're enforcers for a loan shark named Paulie Torino. Not butchers exactly, but they don't mind putting people in the hospital. Why would Chase hire muscle? He's broke. That's what worries me. Men like Vasquez and Church don't work for promises. They work for cash upfront or guaranteed payment. Nathan leaned forward. What could Chase offer them that's worth more than money? The answer hit Ethan like a physical blow. Information about my routine, my security, when I'm alone and vulnerable. Exactly. He sets you up, they take you down, and Paulie Torino gets whatever Chase owes him plus interest. How much could he possibly owe? Nathan pulled out another envelope. $47,000. Gambling debts from before his arrest. Paulie's been very patient, but patience has limits. Ethan studied the financial records. This says the debt was incurred 8 months ago, before Chase started his affair with Savannah. So maybe the affair wasn't about love or even money. Maybe it was about desperation. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Chase hadn't seduced Savannah because he wanted her. He'd seduced her because he needed access to Ethan's money, their joint business accounts, anything that could help him pay off his gambling debts. Savannah hadn't been the mastermind of a calculated betrayal. She'd been the tool of a desperate man's con game. It didn't make her innocent, but it changed the nature of her guilt. "What are you thinking?" Nathan asked. "I'm thinking I may have been fighting the wrong enemy." Ethan's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Midnight, the old bridge on Highway 9. Come alone or everyone you care about gets hurt." "Chase?" Nathan asked, reading over his shoulder. "Has to be." "You're not going." "Like hell I'm not. It's obviously a trap, Ethan. Those enforcers will be waiting. Then I'll be ready for them." Nathan grabbed his arm. "This isn't some movie where the hero fights off 20 bad guys with his bare hands. These are professionals who break bones for a living." "Then what do you suggest?" "We call Detective Slade. Let the law handle it." "And tell him what? That I think my ex-business partner might be planning to have me knocked up by loan sharks? Based on what evidence?" Nathan was quiet for a long moment. "There is another option." "Which is?" "We make sure Chase's plan fails before it starts." Nathan led Ethan to a back room of the gym where several men were waiting. Ethan recognized them as former fighters, gym regulars who'd stayed loyal to Nathan over the years. Hard men with scarred knuckles and hunter's eyes. "Boys," Nathan said, "I'd like you to meet Ethan Cole. He's got a problem that needs solving." The plan was elegant in its simplicity. While Ethan kept his appointment with Chase at the bridge, Nathan's people would pay visits to Tommy Vasquez and Danny Church. Not to hurt them, just to explain that their employer's debt was about to become someone else's problem. "You're sure about this?" Nathan asked as they prepared to leave. "Chase started this war," Ethan replied. "I'm just going to finish it." Highway 9 Bridge was a rusted monument to better times, spanning a dry riverbed 20 miles outside town. Ethan arrived 15 minutes early and parked at the near end, leaving his headlights on to illuminate the approach. Chase was waiting in the middle of the bridge, silhouetted against the night sky. He looked thinner than before, more desperate. Prison had not been kind to him. "You came!" Chase called out as Ethan approached. "You threatened innocent people. That crossed a line." "Innocent people?" Chase laughed bitterly. "Like your wife was innocent? Like you were innocent when you destroyed my life? You destroyed your own life. I just made sure everyone knew about it." "You self-righteous fool. Do you have any idea what you've cost me?" "I lost everything because of you." "You lost everything because you're a thief and a liar." Chase pulled something from his jacket. In the headlight glare, Ethan couldn't tell if it was a weapon or just his phone. "I've got insurance this time," Chase said. "If anything happens to me, certain information gets released. Information about how you systematically destroyed the lives of everyone who crossed you." "What information?" "Recordings of our conversation at the arena. Photos of you following me in Savannah. Evidence that you've been stalking and maltreating us for months." Ethan stepped closer. "You mean evidence that I caught you stealing from me? Evidence that you're an obsessed ex-husband who can't let go? Evidence that you've been planning this revenge for months, maybe years?" Chase's voice was gaining confidence. "I may be broke, but I'm not stupid. I know how to protect myself." "Where are your friends, Chase? The muscle you hired to back you up?" Chase's confident smile faltered slightly. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Tommy Vasquez and Danny Church, Paulie Torino's boys. I know about the gambling debts, Chase. I know why you really started the affair with Savannah. You don't know anything. I know you're $47,000 in debt to a loan shark. I know you've been running cons and schemes for months trying to pay him back. I know Savannah was just another mark in a long line of desperate plays." Chase's face went pale in the headlight glare. "She meant more than that. Did she? Or was she just the easiest way to get close to someone with money?" "You're wrong." "Am I?" "Because I've been thinking about the timeline, Chase. Your gambling debt started 8 months ago. Your pursuit of Savannah started 7 months ago. That's not love. That's strategy." Chase was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, smaller. "You have no idea what it's like to owe money to people like Paulie Torino. They don't just threaten to break your legs. They threaten to hurt everyone you've ever cared about. So you decided to hurt someone who cared about you. I was trying to save both of us. The gym was failing. You were going to lose your investment anyway. At least this way, we could have salvaged something by lying to me, by stealing from me, by turning my wife against me. Savannah was already unhappy. I just gave her an alternative." Ethan was close enough now to see the desperation in Chase's eyes. The man who'd once been his best friend was broken, hollow, a shell of the confident hunter who'd seduced his wife. "Where are Vasquez and Church, Chase?" They said they'd be here. "They're not coming, because unlike you, they're smart enough to know when a situation is hopeless." Chase looked around frantically, finally realizing he was alone. "What did you do?" "I reminded them that sometimes the smartest play is not to play at all." "You're lying." Ethan pulled out his phone and showed Chase a photograph. Tommy Vasquez and Danny Church sitting in Nathan's gym, sharing beers and laughing, like old friends. Professional fighters have long memories, Chase. Nathan trained both of those guys 15 years ago. They remember who helped them and who tried to use them. Chase stared at the photo, his last hope crumbling. "What do you want?" "I want you to disappear." "I can't. Polly will eliminate me if I don't pay." "That's your problem. You made your choices, now live with the consequences." "Please, Ethan. We were friends once." "Friends don't steal from each other. Friends don't seduce each other's wives. Friends don't hire thugs to solve their problems." Chase fell to his knees on the bridge deck, sobbing. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far." "Yes, you did. You meant every bit of it. The only thing you're sorry about is getting caught." Ethan turned to walk away, then stopped. "Chase? Yeah? If I ever see you again, if you ever contact me or anyone I care about, I won't be as generous as I was tonight." "Generous? You destroyed my life. I could have done worse. Remember that." Ethan drove home through empty streets, feeling strangely hollow. The confrontation with Chase had been anticlimactic. No violence, no dramatic revelation, just a broken man begging for mercy he didn't deserve. His phone rang as he pulled into his driveway. Nathan's voice was tired but satisfied. "It's over. Vasquez and Church delivered a message to Paulie Torino. Chase's debt is forgiven in exchange for permanent exile from the state. Will Paulie honor that?" "He will." Turns out Chase owed money to several other people, too. Paulie decided cutting his losses was smarter than throwing good money after bad. And Chase? Got on a Greyhound bus 20 minutes ago. Destination unknown, but he won't be back. Ethan sat in his truck for a long time, staring at the house he'd once shared with Savannah. Tomorrow, the divorce would be final. Next week, he'd put the house on the market and find somewhere new to start over. But tonight, he was just tired. His phone buzzed with a text message. This time, he recognized the number. Savannah. "I heard about what happened with Chase. I know you could have destroyed him completely, but you didn't. Thank you." Ethan stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it without responding. 3 weeks later, Ethan was cleaning out his office at the auto shop when Detective Slade appeared in the doorway. "Moving on?" the detective asked. "New opportunity. Guy in Phoenix wants a partner for his restoration business." "Good for you. Fresh start and all that." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the late afternoon traffic through the shop windows. "You know," Slade said eventually, "I never did figure out exactly what happened between you and Chase Dermott." "Nothing to figure out. He stole money. I caught him. He went to prison." "Uh-huh. And the gambling debts? The loan sharks? The mysterious disappearance? Sometimes people just decide to change their lives." Slade smiled. "Sometimes they do. Just make sure you don't change yours so much that you become someone you don't recognize." "What do you mean?" "I mean, revenge is a hell of a pill, Ethan. It feels good going down, but it changes you, makes you harder, colder, more willing to hurt people who hurt you." "Is that necessarily a bad thing?" "Depends on what kind of man you want to be." After Slade left, Ethan finished packing his belongings and locked up the shop for the last time. As he drove through town, he passed familiar landmarks. The gym where he'd reclaimed his strength, the restaurant where he'd watched Savannah lie to her friend, the motel where Chase had planned his final desperate gambit. All of it felt like someone else's life now. On the highway leading out of town, Ethan's phone rang one last time. Nathan's name on the screen. "You sure about this?" the old trainer asked. "I'm sure. Phoenix is a long way from here." "That's the point. What if I told you I was thinking about selling the gym? Retiring for real this time?" Ethan slowed the truck, suddenly interested. "What would you do with the money?" "Maybe buy into a restoration business in Phoenix, if I could find the right partner." For the first time in months, Ethan smiled. I think I might know someone who's looking for an investor. That's so? Tell me about him. He's a fighter. Used to be, anyway. He's been through some hard times lately, made some mistakes, learned some lessons, but he's ready to start over. Sounds like my kind of partner. I'll have him call you. Ethan ended the call and accelerated toward the horizon, leaving his old life in the rearview mirror. Behind him, the sun was setting on a town full of people who'd learned hard lessons about betrayal and consequences. Ahead of him, the future was uncertain but full of possibilities. 6 months later, Ethan was working on a 1967 Mustang in his new shop when his phone buzzed with a news alert. A familiar name caught his attention. Chase Dermott had been arrested in Las Vegas for running an investment scam targeting elderly retirees. Some people never learned. Ethan deleted the alert without reading the details. Chase's future was no longer his concern. His phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from an unknown number. I know this is weird, but I wanted you to know I'm getting help. Therapy, mostly. Trying to figure out how I became someone I don't recognize. I know you'll probably never forgive me, and I don't expect you to. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what I destroyed. I'm sorry isn't enough, but it's all I have. The message was unsigned, but Ethan knew who'd sent it. He stared at the text for a long time, remembering the woman he'd married 3 years ago. The woman who'd cried in his arms after his injury, who'd promised they'd figure out their future together. She was still in there somewhere, buried under the lies and betrayal and desperate choices. Maybe therapy would help her find that woman again. Maybe it wouldn't. Either way, it wasn't his problem anymore. Ethan deleted the message and went back to work on the Mustang. Nathan was in the office handling the business side of their partnership, leaving Ethan free to focus on what he did best, taking broken things and making them whole again. Outside, the Phoenix sun beat down mercilessly, but inside the shop, it was cool and quiet. The radio played classic rock at low volume, and the only sounds were the gentle hum of machinery and the satisfying click of tools against metal. It was peaceful, clean, honest work that created something beautiful from something damaged. For the first time in years, Ethan Cole was exactly where he belonged. The past was behind him, buried in the desert heat. The future stretched ahead like an open road, full of promise and possibility. And for now, that was enough. He wiped his hands on a shop rag and stepped back to admire his work. The Mustang's engine gleamed under the fluorescent lights, every component cleaned and restored to perfection. Tomorrow, its owner would pick it up and drive it home, never knowing the story of the man who'd brought it back to life. That was fine with Ethan. He wasn't looking for recognition or gratitude. He was just looking for peace. His phone remained silent for the rest of the day. No messages from the past, no threats from enemies, no complications from a life he'd left behind. Just the quiet satisfaction of work well done and a future built on his own terms. When Nathan emerged from the office at closing time, he found Ethan still working, lost in the rhythm of restoration. You know, the old trainer said, I've been thinking about what you told me, about becoming someone you don't recognize. Ethan looked up from the engine. What about it? I think maybe the trick isn't avoiding change. I think the trick is making sure you change into someone better, not someone worse. And how do you do that? Nathan smiled and gestured around the shop. You build something good, something honest, something that makes the world a little better than it was before. Ethan nodded and went back to his work. Outside, the sun was setting over the Arizona desert, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Inside the shop, 2 old fighters worked quietly side by side, building something new from the ashes of their old lives. It wasn't revenge anymore. It wasn't even justice. It was just life, moving forward one day at a time. And that, Ethan decided, was exactly how it should be.